We got some great feedback from our partners with whom we shared a short video last week, which introduces the broader framework for a hate crime prevention initiative here in Ottawa. There seems to be a consensus on the evolving framework and structure, and there is also an agreement about the initial mapping exercise that we conducted, in which we worked on all the symptoms like Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, inequity, etc., and the common issues which lead to those symptoms. So the core issue is intolerance, which leads to hatred, hate, and then ultimately extremism, and that extremism gets translated into violent extremism and terrorism. So there's a consensus on the common issue. There's a consensus on the evolving framework, which is here, in which we are proposing a coalition or a forum for a hate-free Ottawa. And then the two-pronged strategy, which is the intervention and prevention. And at the top, support from the community leaders like the mayor's office, the chief of police, MPs, MPPs, OLIP, school boards, and others. So a coalition, and then support from the champions, and working with the community and community partners for building a safer, stronger, and united Ottawa. So this is the context. But the most important thing that we are going to discuss here in this particular video is that why do we actually need this partnership and this coalition or this forum? One, and number two, what's the continuum of the issues and how that can be solved through the two-pronged strategies that we discussed. So for that purpose, I'll quickly elaborate the continuum of issues. So last week we discussed that, so we have this community, and then we have the stakeholders, which includes faith organizations or faith community. Then we have the social services sector, and then we have the funders, we have the different levels of government, and then we have the law enforcement agencies. So these are the stakeholders. In terms of the continuum of issues, which is very interesting, from the scale perspective, it starts at the neighborhood or community level, and it goes up to the city level and even beyond. So that's in terms of, so we are discussing the issue. There's the issues continuum. So it starts here from the scales perspective, it starts at the neighborhood level and goes up to the city level. Then from the core issues perspective, so what's the core issue? So the core issue is the ignorance, and that leads to intolerance. So it begins with intolerance at the very local level, and from the demographic perspective at the very young age. So intolerance, and that intolerance leads to hate, and with the progression, so this is kind of the continuum of progression, right? So intolerance leads to hate, and hate leads to extremism, and that extremism leads to violent extremism, or in some cases terrorism. So that's from the evolution of the progression of the core issues perspective. Then what we see here at the community level is there are different factors, right? So from the factors perspective, we have disparity, several kinds of disparities. We have the inequity, we have the exclusion, we have lack of opportunities, we have, most importantly, a lack of education and awareness. And all these factors affect the quality of life at the community level. When these factors are combined with intolerance, and it leads to hate and extremism, so ultimately at the community level, at the city level and beyond, what we end up with is threats, insults, and outright attacks and hate crime. Overall, like, these are hate crimes, and these crimes are way more from the impact perspective. So although the at the community level, and so from the age perspective, so we have youth, for instance, involved in some disorganized activities and some leading to some quality of life issues and community safety issues and those kinds of things, right? Or having that wannabe gangs mentality. So that has definitely impact on the community, but the impact of hate crimes is way more serious because they are targeting specific communities, and the message is to all the community, right? And the message is that the group that they are targeting, because of race, religion, ethnicity, or whatever, right, that group is not fit for equal rights, equal opportunities, and doesn't deserve to be part of the community. So that's a very dangerous message, and that can lead to horrible consequences and conflicts down the road. So all these factors lead to quality of life issues, impact the quality of life in the neighborhoods at the community level. But when they progress along this continuum, they finally lead to hate crimes at the city level and even beyond. So there's a particular mindset which is also part of this continuum. So in the beginning of this continuum, certain groups, certain individuals from various demographics, age-wise, ethnicity-wise, they develop this victim mindset. They start considering themselves as victims of another perceived others, another group of people. So for instance, one group would develop this misunderstanding, and that they are victim of the invasion by people from outside, and they are stealing their opportunities, and they don't have any meaningful opportunities in life to progress and to prosper. So they develop that victim mindset, and they start considering another group as villains. Or there could be another group of people, youth or older, and they'll develop this mindset that they're being victimized, there's racism against them, they're not treated equally, there is disparity and all those kinds of things. So they develop this victim mindset. So but with time, as combined with other elements, and they develop that hatred towards the perceived others who they consider as villains, ultimately that can also lead to the extreme, and some of them could end up committing hate crimes as well. And then what happens is that at that level, they start to feel or try to be heroes, right? So the victims then adopt a particular mindset and attitude to become a hero, to become heroes and exact punishment on their perceived enemies or villains. So that's the mindset that plays along this particular continuum. So that's the stakeholders, this is the issues, and then in terms of the response, this is very important, because we need to show all the agencies, all the organizations which are working in different sectors and offering different programs and activities and contributing to the community, so that they could see a role in addressing this serious issue in the community, which is more serious. The hate crime issue is more serious than the ordinary crime. So from the response perspective, we have some faith-based programs. We have some civic engagement boot camps. We have some creating the change we want type of initiatives. We have Ottawa Child and Youth initiatives, programming for youth. We have equity, several equity and inclusion initiatives. We have initiatives which are dealing with disparities of different kinds. We have human rights organizations. We have, most importantly, organizations working on Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism. So we have all these initiatives, and then we have several around these initiatives, like for instance around equity. OLIP is leading a coalition and partnership with several 60 or 61 organizations that are part of it. Ottawa Child and Youth Initiatives is leading a coalition of 80 organizations. There's another one, CDF. Several organizations are sitting there working to eliminate disparity at the neighborhood level. Around the civic engagement, we have some great initiatives run by Kavi and Synapsity. So there is no lack of activities and programming for the community to build leadership skills at the community, to improve the civic engagement in the community. But the question is that, is there any group, any coalition, any partnership which is specifically focusing on sitting with these organizations, for instance, who are dealing with Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and racism, and offer their expertise, their platforms, and other methodologies to address the hate crimes together. So there are isolated efforts there, but I don't think that there is any organized platform where all these agencies would sit together and say that, look, since we are offering civic engagement boot camps, let's review our curriculum. Are we offering anything to ward off the sliding of individuals into extremism? Is there anyone looking into the modules which are offered by creating the Change We Want initiative? There would definitely be components around diversity, but have they looked into their modules from this specific perspective? So that's why the importance of sitting together, have a common forum, and so that we could review our activities, review our programs, and just slightly shift the focus. They're doing exactly the same thing, but just introducing new components in a way so that we could ward off these serious issues. So although we are dealing with providing opportunities to youth to get engaged at the local level, providing them safe space, but then there are youth which might not be going to the programs and activities offered by faith organizations, but they would be the ones coming to the programs and activities or drop-ins offered by the social services sector. So if we could introduce some content here at this level to check any misunderstandings and misperceptions which could down the road lead to getting involved in something related to hate crimes, then that's going to be a huge plus. And so that's the reason that we are bringing this partnership together, so that we have this opportunity to see that how can we mutually reinforce each other's activities. There's of course expertise with these organizations who are running campaign around anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, but they don't have any support. They don't have access to these platforms and these coalitions and partnerships. So they can offer their expertise, they can offer the content, and then these organizations can incorporate some of the components of that work into their programs and activities. And that's what we can call mainstreaming of the approach to eliminate hate crime and violent extremism in Ottawa. And I believe that if we could work on this particular initiative in such a collaborative way, keeping in mind all the preconditions for collective impact, that we have a common agenda to eliminate hate crime, then we discuss how to set a benchmark against which we could down the road measure our progress, and then we look into our activities and develop different strategies to address hate crime and introduce content which could address the issues right at the beginning of this continuum, to remove any misconceptions, any misunderstandings, that would remove that ignorance eliminate intolerance right at the beginning, and induce acceptance to help them understand that anything that's different is not wrong. That would be the beginning. I hope that down the road that would play a key role. Otherwise, if we wait for the law enforcement agencies, if we have this misunderstanding that our mandate is not prevention of hate crime and it's law enforcement agencies who are responsible for preventing hate crime, then we would never be able to address or nip the evil in the bud. So for nipping evil in the bud, I think we all have to deal with the issue, and that's why I explained this continuum of issues, that whatever happens here at the city level and beyond, when communities are targeted, when individuals are targeted, when institutions are targeted, that doesn't happen overnight. A person doesn't become an extremist overnight. Everything begins down here, and if we don't check the problem here, then checking it over here is almost impossible. So hopefully this provides a bit of context that why do we need to have this kind of a forum. Otherwise, we are not interested in introducing forum after forum for the sake of introducing a new forum or a new partnership or a new initiative. So we understand, we realize, we appreciate the capacity, the work and the mandate of all these organizations. This is great work. But all that we want is to also realize that we have a huge role to play in addressing the hate crime issues and some of our demographics sliding into extremism and then committing hate crimes and in some cases terrorism as well. So hopefully this is clear enough for our meeting on December the 14th, and we'll share with other organizations and partners with whom we don't have enough time to sit and discuss this in detail. So hopefully this will provide a bit of context to all of us, and hopefully we succeed in developing a model that other cities would love to borrow from us. Thank you so much.